Right to be Read podcast, episode number 2. Interview with historical fiction writer Tony Riches.
You are listening to the Right to be Read podcast, and this is your host, Ani Alexander.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Right to be Read podcast. Today I'm interviewing a historical fiction writer, Tony Riches. Tony lives with his wife in southwest of Wales, one of the most unspoiled areas of the UK. Like many authors, he began writing short stories and contributing to a range of magazines. His first novel, Queen's Sacrifice, was written after looking into the early history of Wales. His non-fiction books have reached number 1 in their Amazon category and have sold well across Europe. Hi, Tony. Welcome to the Right to be Read podcast. I'm really happy to have you here. Let's talk about writing. Let's talk about authors and how to inspire the newbie authors to go ahead and write themselves. So what I would like to start with is a bit of a background. Let's go back and see who was Tony before he became a writer.
Yeah, I suppose I was always writing, really, because I used to write magazine articles. And every month I was published in some kind of magazine for as long back as I can remember. And then when Wikipedia really started having some credibility, I became a Wikipedia reviewer, which means that I used to go in and help new authors on Wikipedia and show them how to do references and all of that kind of thing. But also I used to review questionable articles on Wikipedia and had special rights where I could block them or remove them or whatever. So that was really quite a good basis for actually writing books.
Okay, I see. And do you, by any chance, remember your very first writing experience? I mean, how did you start writing, actually? Maybe it was at school, writing a poem or whatever it was, like the very first thing you can remember from it.
Yes, it was a magazine article, and it was about, it was historical. It was about Sir Walter Raleigh, and I was trying to find a different angle about Sir Walter Raleigh than everybody was taught at school. And really it's interesting because that's what I'm still doing today, is very much the same kind of thing, is taking really legendary history things and then looking for new angles on them that people won't expect.
Okay, and how old were you when you wrote that first article?
Quite young, actually, mid-20s, something like that.
Okay, so you're we can say that you're a very experienced writer. You've been doing it since
years, yeah.
Okay, so how many books do you have by now? You write fiction, right? Your books are
both.
fiction.
I've got 8 books on Amazon, of which 3 are novels, full-length novels, and 5 of them are non-fiction books.
Okay.
And I actually started off with a very successful non-fiction book on agile project management, which really took off in America. And that really gave me the encouragement to start thinking about novels.
I see. So all your books are self-published, as far as I understand.
Yes. I did start submitting my first novel to publishers and getting into discussions. And then I realized I really like having complete control of the process and not having to wait a year while they think about it. Because in that year, I could be published and getting on with the next one.
Yeah, I see this tendency that many authors actually now, since they have this great opportunity of being self-published, they usually choose that route, because I have a feeling that most of the writers are very impatient and they really seek to put their work out there. And did you have any writer's doubts in the beginning, those thoughts coming into your head that the writing isn't good enough, or who will be reading it? Will they like it or not? Being scared of bad reviews or something like that, or no?
I think all of those. I started off with non-fiction because I was scared of writing dialogue. Dialogue is really tricky if you've never done it. And in all the magazine articles I'd written, there was never any dialogue. And it is a challenge to get it right. And even now, what I've started doing, somebody showed me a trick, is you can get Word to read it back to you aloud. And that's quite interesting because it's quite sophisticated now, and it actually emphasizes words according to the punctuation and things like that. I think everybody worries about reviews. My new novel has had reviews at both ends of the scale, you know. And one person said it should be 3 times the length, which would make it over 1,000 words. And I should just ignore that, but it kind of nags at the back of your mind. So that's actually inspired me to set out on a trilogy now. So my next book is going to be 3 books as a trilogy. And I think it's quite healthy to be a little bit aware of your own limitations, because that helps you to keep developing, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I suppose if you thought you'd really got it all sorted.
Yeah, it makes you want to write better and to strive for excellence, and you work on yourself a bit more. And when you're too self-confident, then it kind of negatively impacts the quality of the writing at the end. Maybe, I don't know.
On the other hand, it's great to get a really good review. I had one yesterday out of the blue of my first novel, which is 2 years old now, and just somebody bought it and did a really nice review. And it was such a surprise, you know, because I'd half forgotten that people are still buying that and reading it as a new book. I feel it's quite old now, 2 years old, but it just is good.
Yeah, but those reviews really, you know, warm you up from inside, and it's very exciting to get those reviews, because I think in the very beginning, when you write your first book, you never know if you will ever get these kind of 5-star reviews with a very emotional and nice feedback. So I think that sometimes these kind of honest reviews are even better than the sales figures, actually, because they create this emotional link with the reader, so you end up knowing that they got what you've written. So I think that's very important too, which I don't know, since you've written fiction and non-fiction together and you can compare those, I mean, since the processes are a bit different and the marketing of those books are a bit slightly different too, do you have this emotional connection with your readers in case of non-fiction books?
It's an interesting question. I don't think it's quite an emotional connection. It's more of a professional connection, because particularly with the project management book, that's put me in contact with a huge network of project managers around the world, which has been quite exciting. And of course, they're all real people with backstories, and quite a lot of them would like to write novels as well and things like that.
Okay, so did you actually, are your nonfiction books part of your business? Do they lead to follow-up projects, or do you have a follow-up things like online courses or consulting or things like that connected to your nonfiction books, or they are just, you know, books which you sell?
No, my future plan is to really establish myself as a historical fiction author. And so the non-fiction books are useful in that they all address different niches. So one of my principles is that every single book I write uniquely fits into a niche where there is very little or absolutely no competition for it. And that's quite interesting for anybody that wants to make it as a new author, is to find that niche where if you search for a book about Warwick, for example, my new novel about Richard Neville, there are no novels at all, except for mine, of course. I'll tell you very quickly a little story about, I was watching the final space shuttle mission on television live, and on NASA TV, actually, it was live, returning back to Earth at night. And I thought, this is a real bit of history. It'd make an interesting book. And I searched, and there were no books about the final space shuttle mission at all at the time. And so I contacted NASA Media Center and I said, would you help me with the research and allow me to use images and stuff? And they were really, really helpful. So they accredited me as a journalist effectively. And then the whole book was based on information provided by NASA Media Center. And it just goes to show that's sold around the world every month since I published it. And that's quite interesting in itself, isn't it? That it's multi-genre authorship is achievable for anybody, I think, if they want to.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I think that we have this stereotype that being a writer and writing is a lonely process, and it's just you and your thoughts and your computer these days, and or notebook and pen, etc. But here in your story, we have the example where there are other people who can help out, and it's not really. I mean, you can not limit yourself into being just yourself and your book. You can look for other options, and you can look for supporters and get some information which will later on lead you to something much bigger. And the idea itself came out of I mean, I think that's what how writers are different, because the ideas come from everywhere, and other people might not even think about, might watch the program and then go on with their lives, never think about writing about that. So writers tend to find ideas almost everywhere, and so this time it was the TV program. But where usually you get the inspiration and ideas for your books? Is it real life stories or TV, or I don't know, where is the most usual places where you are looking for ideas?
I think it's things that I'm genuinely interested in. So it would be impossible really to write a really engaging book about something that you didn't care about, So I'll give you another quick example that Scott, when he went to the South Pole, he sailed in a ship which nobody had written a book about, and I was interested in the ship.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So the ship was called Terra Nova. It's been quite interesting on Amazon because there was a TV series called Terra Nova, and I think people were searching for the TV series and they found my book.
Uh-huh.
And whether they bought it by mistake or what, I don't know. But that's an example of another niche thing. And one of the things I was going to mention to you actually was that if we go back to fiction writing and how do people make a successful start, one of the biggest challenges is the discipline it takes to write. I don't know, I'm just thinking of how many, 100,000 words before you edit it. Mm-hmm. I normally go for 100,000 and then edit it down to 90-something or 80-something. And I latched in when I was writing my first novel to NaNoWriMo. Mm-hmm. You familiar with that?
Yes, I did it for 2 years. Yes, I managed to do it on 2012 and 2013. So I wrote both my novels with NaNoWriMo. It's really good for accountability, actually.
I'd recommend it to anybody because, like you say, it can be a lonely life, can't it? Just typing away and wondering if you're getting it right. And the discipline of writing 50,000 words in 30 days and not having to care about whether they're good or bad or whether the dialogue is convincing. The good thing is that there's a huge community out there, isn't there, which is very supportive.
Yes.
And I never used to use Google Plus, for example, but now I've got an enormous NaNoWriMo community on Google Plus, where we're in contact probably a couple of times a week with ideas and stuff about things where people are having problems or where we're exchanging blog posts and stuff like that.
Oh, interesting. So for our listeners, for those who don't know, NaNoWriMo is National November Writing Month, Novel Writing Month? Or November
That's
Writing
right.
Month.
National Novel Writing Month, which is in November, yeah.
So it's at NaNoWriMo.org. the website, and starting from the 1st of November, all writers log in and start punching words, and they have to finish 50,000 words in 30 days during November. So it's a platform, it's a website where all writers unite. They have very helpful forums. You can check your idea, you can get feedback, you can have support, and it's they have a stats page as well, so you can see how you are doing and if you are in the right speed to finish on time or not. So it's a really good place to start writing your first book, because you get the support and you get the accountability you need. So even if you don't feel like writing at that day, at least you will do something to make sure you manage on time.
There's a good bonus as well, in that if you succeed in writing the 50,000 words, they send you a voucher for CreateSpace, so that you can have a box of novels at discounted price.
Yes, they have.
Which is really good, isn't it?
Absolutely. And they have many other discounts on author-related things like software or membership of paid sites, etc. So every year the package is different, but everything is related to what authors might need. So it's a good encouragement to finish on time. So and we're talking about the first draft, so it doesn't have to be a decent novel. It's just the first draft to work on later on. So you can finish it, polish it, edit it later on. So you just need to have the first draft ready, and the first drafts never have to be perfect. So it's still fine. Okay, so what about how is it? Since again you can compare fiction and non-fiction, which books are doing better? Actually, you can compare the situation in the market, and how are you acquiring readers for your books, both for fiction and non-fiction?
Yeah, that's been a real challenge for me, because I had no idea when I started how to go about it, and I decided a good principle would be I would never pay anybody any money. I would do everything that I could for free and see how far I could get with that, as a bit of an experiment, really. I've tried YouTube videos to promote my books, and I've tried Twitter campaigns. I've been experimenting with Facebook. But what I've found is the one single thing that makes a big difference is my writing blog and blog posts. And the way that I've learned that works best is to find an author that's got a new book coming out, and to invite them to guest post on your blog, but encourage them to say something about why they write and how they write and even where they write, because people find that really interesting, and it engages them on a more emotional level. And when people visit the people that are guest posting, their readers come to my writing blog, you see, and then they start exploring, and they discover my books that way, which is quite a nice way of doing it, I think.
Okay, so you are promoting other authors' books and like that getting traffic of people who eventually discover your book later on.
Yes.
And recently you had a really big success with one of your books. I remember you had a Facebook status post saying that you sold over 1,000 copies.
Yes.
Was it a result of a certain strategy, or how did you get these sales results? What was done to get there?
Yes. What I did, that's almost the culmination of everything I've learned so far, because I'd seen lots of ideas about how to do novel launches, and I had questions about some of the things that people are doing, which is kind of overexposure of the novel too early on before it's built up any kind of reader base. So I think the important thing is to make sure that you've got everything ready, so that when your novel is published, you've identified which are the ideal places to guest post about it, and have a promotional video ready, and to have some free copies to give away to the right reviewers, and then what I also do, which has been very successful, is that it's a lot of people do it now, is in the back of all the other books, I put a promotion for the new book.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the beauties of online publishing, whether it's ebooks or paperbacks, is that I can update them in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And within less than 24 hours, people are buying the promotional material for the new book.
Mm-hmm.
And that has worked extremely well, because in the new book, I put effectively trailers for my previous 2 novels.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen a surge in sales of those since the new book was published. So that's because it's very hard to tell sometimes what works and why.
Mm-hmm.
And you can be wondering exactly what led to a sudden increase in sales or a sudden drop in sales. All you see is the figure, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But sometimes if you don't change too many of the variables at once, then you can actually see what is the cause of a change in readership growth.
Okay, and these days it's quite difficult, isn't it? Because the market is so crowded because of this easy entry barrier, the low barrier. Anyone can write a book and publish it, so it's not really something like years ago when you had to get an agent first, and then the agent had to get a publisher for you, and then the publisher had to spend a year or even more to have your book ready and print it out and distribute to bookstores, etc. So it took ages. Plus, it wasn't open to everyone. So these days, because of the easiness of becoming an author, we ended up with very crowded market, and the competition is very big. So I think your strategy of writing books which basically don't have any similar books around and are the only options if a person is interested in the topic, I think that's the best at this stage, because maybe it's difficult to find those topics because people virtually write about everything, but it seems that you managed to find those.
It's interesting that you say that, because there's probably an apocryphal tale about a Victorian inventor that killed himself because everything had already been invented. And it's a bit like that with books these days, is that I could forgive an author, particularly a new author, who thought that everything had been done and there was nothing left to do, you know. But actually the truth is, if you just take, as I've done, just take history, and you can take any period of history, and of course what we know of that time is written by the people that survived and won, and is coloured by all sorts of social and political perspectives. And if you actually go back to the source material, your own country's history, anywhere at all, there's a fascinating story behind it all, which possibly hasn't been told.
Yes.
So there's a huge resource of untapped stories still to be found if people bother to look.
Okay, yeah, I can see what you mean. So now that you have been writing since such a long time and you have so many books, now that you know things much better because you've tried different things, what would you do differently when you were starting?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think I waited far too long, and I was not sure that I could actually write a whole book. Mm-hmm. It's quite daunting, isn't it? You've done it, and you know, you start out on page 1 and you think, this could take the rest of my life, you know?
Well, I think that's the issue. The main and the most important and difficult part is making the first step. So I had a feeling, at least that's what happened to me, that more I wrote, easier it became. So, you know, you sit there, you have the global idea, but you don't know the details, you don't know how to continue. You just start your first paragraph and somehow it leads to the second one and to the third one, and you end up getting really a obsessed by the story, and it kind of it leads you itself. The characters and the storyline, it happens, and you just have to make the time and the commitment to write it down. So in the beginning, it's very scary. You don't even imagine that it can become so easy, but it's about starting actually and continuing writing, no matter whether you think it's good or bad.
There's a good thing I read somewhere once, which is that a page a day is a book a year. So if you can actually just write that one page every day, however busy you are, writing one page and not worrying too much about how perfect it is, because there is always people that will help you edit it.
Sure.
That's how to do it. And I think my novels have taken me on average about a year each to do, including the research. So it works, that idea.
Yeah, I think thinking about how good or bad is the quality of the text is too early at that stage when you are starting, because its place is later on in further, more advanced stages once you have the first draft ready. And I don't think it should become an excuse of not continuing or not completing the manuscript. Because, for example, I'm writing in English, and English is not my native language. And of course, my first drafts are much, much worse, and I end up asking for help and getting editor work on the text, because it's written in foreign language. But still, at the end, you end up with a book, and with a decent one. So I don't think that the doubts of how good it will be at the end should stop people from starting to write, because if they have a story, they should write it and share it with others, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, and so imagine someone who has a story in his mind, but parallel to that has all those doubts and struggles and a full-time job and things that come into his way, and he has the desire, but he doesn't know where to start, how to organize things, what to do first, etc. So what would you advise? I mean, based on your experience, how he should start?
I would start by just writing anything every day, just to get used to writing every day, and to read. So what I started doing was rereading my favorite authors, but in a different way, and understanding how they had structured the work, and how the way they used the dialogue, the way they punctuated things, the way they described things, how they held my attention, and the tricks that they start to use. It probably helps if you do go on a course, some kind of training course, but I just learned from others. And obviously, if you pick something which is very close to the sort of thing you'd like to write yourself, then you can learn an awful lot from somebody else's work. And I started writing a series of blog posts, actually, about famous authors. And I find it fascinating. Every month I pick a different author and I read something of theirs and I look at how they work. And those have been very popular blog posts, because a lot of people are fascinated in how people achieve what they do with writing.
Okay, I see. So actually, since your blog is your main source of getting new readers for your books, how did you grow the blog in that case? I mean,
what I did, I joined on. First of all, I started with Twitter, and I put all of my energies into Twitter. So I've got about 13,500 followers on Twitter, but they're mostly what I call validated. In other words, they're either readers or potential readers, or they're other authors with big readerships. They're not people that are trying to sell me 1,000 Twitter followers, and they're not people in a completely different world to mine. And what I do then, there's a thing called Triber, TRIBRR. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a collection of like-minded people that share each other's tweets and blog posts on Twitter.
I see.
And if you just type in Triber, Triber, into Google, you'll find it.
Mm-hmm.
And you join a group of people with the same interests as yourself. And then the deal is that when they post something on their blog and tweet it, it comes up in the Triber feed. And with one click, you can send it to all of your Twitter followers.
Mm-hmm.
So basically what you get is a huge leverage. So when I actually post a new post, within a minute, it's had up to 100 views around the world. And then within a day, it's up to 500 or 600. And then in the month, I'm averaging, the best I've ever had, I think, was about 10,000 in a month. But the average is about 5,000 or 6,000. But they're validated visitors. They're not just people that are coming. They're people that are coming because they're interested in the topic, basically.
Mm-hmm. I see. So it's very good because you get the leverage. You have a very big audience, potential audience, and also the audience is already targeted.
Yes.
So it sounds
and
to
it
be,
costs nothing.
and it costs nothing. It's the ideal resource. I think we will have the link to it in our notes, the podcast
Good.
notes for the authors to check it out and try, because apparently for you it worked very well, because this amount of 13,500 you said Twitter followers.
Yeah,
that's a really big followship, and
it's a good audience. And what I do as well is I use lists within Twitter. So I've got lists for different things. So I've got a list for historical fiction and a list of people like yourself that are of interest to authors. Mm-hmm. I call it Tweeters for Writers. I think you can see the list if anybody goes into my Twitter lists. It's a public list.
Okay.
And it's hundreds of people on Twitter that tweet things that are of interest to authors. Uh-huh. And it means that I only have to spend a few minutes on Twitter every day, because I can just go to that list and just retweet a few things off of there. Mm-hmm. And guarantee that they will get a lot of interest from the right kind of people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I see. So apparently from social media channels, besides Twitter, which one are you using also? Because Facebook, you said it wasn't a very successful channel for you, or
no,
I don't know which.
I kept Facebook for my family.
Uh-huh.
So basically, I separated my family and my writing life. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I wasn't really bothered with using Facebook as an author until this year, when I decided to give it a go, because I had another series of blog posts, which every month I was writing 10 tips for one particular type of social media. Uh-huh. So, 10 tips for using Google+. And the idea I had was, when I'd written 10 posts, I had 100 tips, and I published it as an ebook. Uh-huh. So it is actually available. It's only 99 cents. I give it away quite often to people as well, which is nice to be able to do. But it's 100 tips for online author platform building for authors. Uh-huh. And within that, of course, I had to then address Facebook. I couldn't leave it out. There'd be this huge hole in my book, you see. So I had to actually go through the steps of setting up my Facebook author account. But I don't think it's led to many book sales. But that could be my fault, because I'm putting my energy into Twitter rather than Facebook. Yeah. And another author has told me that most of her sales are through Facebook. So it's
I think since there are very, very different social media channels, and people don't really have the time to follow them all and concentrate on all of them at the same time. Plus, after all, we have to write. I guess the results come from the channel you concentrate on usually.
Yeah,
and
that's a good idea.
You end up choosing the one which you feel most comfortable with, and then I think the realistic figure is just 2 or maximum 3 media channels to concentrate on, because otherwise you just won't have time to do things efficiently on all of them. So depending maybe on the person, different channels are more suitable for different people, and you end up having the results from those which you spend most time in.
Yeah, definitely, because it's a huge distraction, and if you're not very careful, you can spend more time than you would really need to on social media.
That's yes.
And for example, Google Plus. When I post something on blog, it automatically gets put on Google Plus without me doing anything. So that's the kind of thing I like, because you get much more reach without actually doing anything at all and at no cost. But you do need to have the right circles in Google Plus, so that people are actually seeing what you put there.
Yeah, absolutely. So what will be the best place to connect with you? I mean, with your readers, is it your blog, I suppose, where they should...
The easiest way is to just go to Twitter at Tony Riches, one word, and or you can just go into Amazon and type in Tony Riches in books, and all my books come up. And then I've got an author page there which has got links to everything else.
Okay.
And a lot of authors, by the way, fail to use that. It's like a free website on Amazon.
Yes.
The annoying thing is there's 10 Amazons now around the world, and you can't what you put on your author page on one doesn't get carried through to the others.
Yeah, you have to do them individually for each
You have to
market.
do them, yeah. So there is that. So there's a little bit of time involved, but the return on that investment is good, because if people are wondering whether or not to buy your book, they could well click on your name then and learn a little bit about you and think, oh, I'll give it a chance. And that's, I'm sure, how it leads to more book sales then.
Yeah, I can imagine. What about, since we spoke about social media, what about Goodreads, since it's the social media which is supposed to be the closest for the writers? So do you use that?
Yeah, absolutely. Once again, I've got an RSS feed from my blog to Goodreads. And then there's an option in Goodreads where you can allow people to just connect with you on Goodreads. And so every time somebody connects with Goodreads, I accept that request. So I've got 1,800 or something like that. And then I know that they're reading my blog posts on Goodreads because I get comments from Goodreads. It does a really neat job of it, but you do need to set up a Goodreads author page as well. And a lot of people fail to do that. And what Goodreads gives you is a little kind of silhouette person if you don't bother uploading a profile picture. And it's just a little tip for people to think about is to set up on Goodreads. It's all free. Set up an RSS link from their blog, and then they don't have to do very much else. But what I have started doing in the last 12 months is every month I try and review somebody's book, and I post the review on Goodreads and also on my blog, and then I tweet it around Twitter and the other social media. And that's working out really well, because publishers are now sending me books unsolicited as they're published. The one I'm reading at the moment is the original novel of Spartacus, which I never would have bought. Right? It's only just been published, not even released on general sale yet. And I'm going to be reviewing that on my blog, putting it on Goodreads, tweeting it around Twitter and the other social media. And you're associated with it then in some subtle way. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And it gives you more credibility. That's because my niche that I'm addressing is historical fiction now.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I'll never write another non-fiction book, but that's where I'm interested in pursuing in the future.
And which is easier? I don't know. I mean, I had a feeling that writing non-fiction is maybe easier in a sense that it needs more this to be disciplined and to be more structured, etc. But at least you don't have to come up with original ideas, with a storyline, with new characters. You end up working with the materials which already exists mainly. Do you find any difference in terms of which one is easier for you, or non-fiction or fiction?
Yeah, I think writing fiction is more fun.
Yeah.
Writing non-fiction feels like work, especially writing a book on agile project management. That's what I used to do for a living. So it felt like work. However, people might be interested to know that until recently, I was selling 100 non-fiction books for every novel that I sold, at least. The ratio was 100 to 1. So that's a phenomenal difference, isn't it? And it's only now, having got 3 novels behind me, that's starting to balance out.
And
which is quite interesting, I think.
Do you also have this feeling that non-fiction books can be priced higher than fiction ones, or it's only me?
No, the whole thing about book pricing is fascinating. I've got a guest poster on my blog this week, and her ebook and her paperback book were the same price on Amazon. And so I've been encouraging her to think about that. And my strategy that I've developed over the time is that to keep the paperback books about the same price as they would be in the shops, so that I think you can price a paperback too cheaply and people look at it suspiciously. But the ebooks, the sort of ephemeral nature of it is that my non-fiction ebooks are mostly 99 cents, which is the minimum that Amazon will let you do it for, and will let me do it for. And then it's a case of sort of volume rather than exclusivity. So I'd rather have high volume and go up the Amazon rankings and stuff like that than sell less books but be more expensive each time. And I think a lot of book buyers, I've recently, only this year, I bought a Kindle Paperwhite. It's ironic really, because all this time I've been writing ebooks and I never read an ebook on a Kindle.
Okay, I see.
I didn't think I would like it, but I bought a Paperwhite, and now I'm using it most days.
You get used to it, right? I mean, in the beginning, you think that it's not a real book. You need the smell, you need to touch it, etc.
I know.
But
what I like is that you can just touch a sentence and store it, and then when you're reviewing it later on, you can recall that sentence in seconds and use and quote it in your review.
Yeah.
Isn't that a great feature? And there's all things like that. But basically, my Kindle will hold, 5,000 books. So I don't think I'll ever have to delete one. And when I go on holiday, I've got books for every mood, really, just sitting there to be read,
Yeah, and it's small and doesn't take space and all that. So
we were talking about pricing, and I think if people are not sure, to look at the bestsellers. I talk about Amazon, but I've also got my books on Smashwords, where they're doing well for Apple and things like that, and Barnes and Noble. Because basically, when you publish your book on Smashwords, that costs nothing either, and they send it off to Apple and Kobo and Barnes and Noble. And it's surprising that you go back and visit your Smashwords site. They've just put a new sales analysis feature there this week, where you can see where your books are selling and how many of them and which books by month, by 30-day period. So I recommend that to anybody because I had a sudden surge of books on Apple, which I didn't do anything to encourage. It just happened, through Smashwords. And I think, look at what other people are pricing their books at that seem to be doing quite well, and you probably will be getting it about right.
I see. Okay, so any last encouragement words for our listeners who are most probably thinking about or just started writing a book?
Yes, I can say everybody has doubts. Even the famous authors have doubts. You know, J.K. Rowling was rejected by all the major publishers, and so were most of the famous authors. Um, I'd recommend a book which I found very helpful. It's by Stephen King, who's one of my favorite
On
authors, and
writing.
it's on writing.
Yes.
And I think everybody, whether they've ever wanted to write or they wonder if they can, should read that book and keep it to hand, yeah, and perhaps even memorize some of the phrases out of it. The other thing I would say is that, as you know, there's nothing better than actually holding in your hand a copy of a book that you've written, and then to see people all over the world enjoying it.
Yeah.
That's a really satisfying thing. And,
Very.
you know, when you think these days, you really are making something out of nothing, because there's not even, I don't even print out my manuscripts now.
Mm-hmm.
It's all done in Word and manipulated, and all the editing is all done on electronic copies these days, you know. And so there's very little sort of waste in the process, is there really?
Yeah.
And it's very satisfying to see it working. And you know, some people say it doesn't matter about the money, but it's also nice to see sales building up. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there is a business there for people that can be bothered or are interested in doing it.
Yes, I think that with the time, at some point, when you reach the point where you succeed enough to make full-time income out of it, then you have the ideal situation when you can do what you love most and just write. So,
that's right. Yeah.
And I think that's the basic dream of all authors to be able just to write, and that's all, and enjoy the results of their writings. Okay.
Definitely. And it's a global community now as well, of course.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, look at this. You know, there's just a tiny little delay at this end, and I'm in remote rural Wales, and you're on the other side of the world, 3 hours time difference, and it makes barely a second difference, does it?
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so thank you very much for coming to the show. Thank you very much for sharing your experience and your tips. I hope our listeners will get inspired in order to go back, write, and inspire others in their turn. Okay.
Well, thank you very much for your time. It's been lovely speaking to you.
Thanks a lot.
Well, that was it for today. For the podcast notes, please visit www.anniealexander.com/002. Also, if you would like to share love and help this podcast grow, please leave a rating and review on iTunes and subscribe to it as well. Thanks a lot, and see you in the next episode.